Okay, anything can happen. Okay. When Karen sent me the lyrics to this, oh, not you. I'm just helping you down. When Karen sent me the lyrics to Barbara's Life, I read them and I thought, wow, anything can happen. And people use that expression sometimes in a positive way and sometimes in a negative way. Well, anything can happen, you never know, right? Today is September 21st. Okay, it's an exciting day. 23 years ago today, Kevin and I got married. Now, the thing about that is that you just didn't do that 23 years ago. You know, two guys, two women, they didn't get married 23 years ago. But I've never been a person who believed that anything was out of the ordinary for me or out of the projection of what I could accomplish. So if I wanted to get married, it didn't matter. I'm getting married. And so we decided to get married, and we threw a huge wedding in Southampton on the beach at sunrise. Everyone had to be up for sunrise for our wedding. It kept the numbers low. Much more efficient financially. And we had a very amazing event happen around all of this, which was that our families had some issues to deal with 23 years ago that we were getting married. Now, what was interesting to me was Kevin's family was from Rochester, New York, totally oblivious to the fact that there were two men getting married. They were all there. My family, and by the way, Kevin had only just realized a few years earlier that he was a gay man, in love with a gay man. And my family, who've grown up with me, had the most horrible time with it all because they were Roman Catholic. And they kept saying, you can't do this. You can't get married. We're fine that you're gay. We love Kevin, but you can't get married. It's a sin. And I'm like, sin? I don't deal with sin. And so we got married, and most of my family was not there. And it was very interesting how that happened and surprised me at the same time. And even a funnier story, I went with my best man to pick out a place for the breakfast. Because I did grow up Catholic, so I knew how to do a Catholic wedding. So it was like, you know, the service, and then the breakfast, and then the time for everybody to rest, and then the reception, just like the good Catholic weddings I'd gone to. And we went to find the reception place, and they were great. I was ordering everything, and they asked the name of the bride, and I said, well, it's not a bride, it's actually another groom, and they turned me down. And this was in Southampton, New York. I was like, seriously? And they were like, yeah. So I went to the next place that I wanted to go to, and I went in, and they asked for the name of the bride, and I gave some fictitious name, Karen Bailey, and they, you know, they did great. We planned the whole thing, and when we showed up the day of the wedding, somehow I was ahead of Kevin. I was with my three aunts who did come. And I'm coming up the stairs, and the maitre d' came out to say hello, and he said, where's the bride? And I went, he's right there. And he was like, oh. I said, nice to see you. And we walked in, and it was great. Most of the waitstaff was gay. So we had the most attended wedding. They were so attentive. They took care of us. Everybody gave speeches. It was just beautiful. Anything can happen. Everything is possible. It just depends on what you decide is possible. And that was 23 years ago. 6 years ago, on the very same day, September 21st, Kevin and I decided to get married again because all of a sudden, you know, 17 years later, it was legal for a brief second here in LA. And we needed to get into that window. So how many of you were at that wedding? Yes, so there were about 150, 200 people on the beach, and we decided to make it a sunset wedding. Because we figured, you know, sunrise, sunset, I'm Tevye, he's Golda, it's time. So we did it. I know, you're Tevye. I know, I was just going to say, and the only person in this congregation right now who was at both weddings was Rick Tamlin. Yes. Rick actually got up at sunrise, drove to Southampton, and was at that wedding, and then he officiated at our second wedding. So anything can happen. And here's what's interesting. Right after we got married, Prop 8 passed, and no more gay marriage. And then, and there was so much stuff about it. And I bring all of this up not because I'm one of those people that goes around with political issues. I don't. Here's what I believe. I believe that everything happens and unfolds exactly the way it's supposed to. 23 years ago, it wasn't in the consciousness of this culture for gay marriage. 23 years later, it still wasn't, but it was an idea that was percolating. And now we have it going on more and more around the country. And if you talk to the youth, what you find is that it's not even an issue to them. So it's just the way we are evolving. And I want to bring that up today because in terms of anything is possible, it's really important to remember everything is, in fact, unfolding perfectly, and no condition can ever tell me this isn't a possibility. It's not a possibility right now because of the consciousness. Where am I putting my consciousness? That's how important that is. So, there was a time when the idea of gay marriage was absurd. There was a time when the idea of a black man and a white woman getting married was absurd. There was a time when the idea of women voting was absurd. There was a time when the idea of black people not being our slaves was absurd. And if I keep going backwards, there was a time when sex was just a man taking a club, beating you over the head and saying it's time. Which I hope to all of you is absurd. Just saying. So there is going to become a time when war is absurd. Right? There is going to come a time when hunger is absurd, when no child will be hungry anywhere. It will be absurd, and it's absurd now. There is more food on this planet to feed everyone, and yet we have people hungry. And there's got to come a time when that will be absurd. There will be a time when disease will be absurd. It will just be absurd. We'll be living in the Star Trek land. Someone gets a disease, and go, oh no, bzz, you're done. That's how it has to go, because that's the truth. That's where we are headed. So the question is, what do you still think is viable that really is absurd? Lack, limitation, financial problems, disease, health issues, relationship problems. We still think that they're viable because they keep showing up. They keep coming. They keep happening. And yet, in the scope of things, it's absurd to have money problems. It's just absurd. There is opulence everywhere. The only reason it shows up is because there's opulence everywhere, and I don't believe it. And I certainly don't believe it's mine. No walls, no fear, gonna hold me down. The truth is here, ready to be found. I open up my heart, every moment a brand new start. Anything can happen. So my question to you is, what do you base your version of anything on? It's one thing to walk around saying anything can happen. Then I want you to ask yourself, what do you base your version of anything on? Anything can happen. Kevin and I, they're building these amazing houses in my neighborhood. It's like suddenly turning into Bel Air. Everybody tears down a house and puts up a mansion. And there's a house at the corner, in the corner of our street, that Kevin and I went to see first, and I said, you really should go look at this house. And I walked in, and it was just spectacular, just gorgeous. And, anything is possible. Anything is possible. The question becomes, is it possible for you? Because anything is possible. But where do you draw the line on your anything? When you say anything is possible, do you then counter it with what is possible for you given the circumstances of your life? What's possible for a woman, ... What's possible for a man of such and such an age, ... What's possible for someone at my level of education, ... What's possible for someone who's only been able to do this so far in life, ... Where do you put your ... when you say to yourself, anything is possible, I mean, think about, I loved what Jay said about Stephen King. You know, what if Carrie had just been thrown in the trash can? I mean, just think about that. I mean, some of you probably are like, whatever, I don't care about Carrie. What if Long Day's Journey into Night was put in the trash can? What if A Death of a Salesman was put in the trash can? There's this great story about Death of a Salesman when it was being directed, and the director turned to Arthur Miller at one point and said, it's me or you. You either leave the theater because I can't direct this with you hovering over me. It's me or you. And Arthur Miller just left the theater and came back and saw what was made of his thing. Very often what is inside us to do, we get so controlling over, we don't let God direct it out of us. We don't let that within us that knows how to do it come through us and show us the way. Because we're too busy telling God, but I'm 86 years old. How could I possibly do that? I'm 60. How could I possibly do that? I'm 35. My life is over. I had an actor just recently say to me, I missed my opportunity to be a young actor in this city. He was 29. I was like, what are you in this city then? 29. I'm still a young actor in this city. Don't you dare laugh. So the anything really has to do with your mind. Where do you draw the line? Raymond Charles Barker said this, and I brought this up in my workshop in The Power of Decision, and it has just stuck with me every single day since that day. You cannot go beyond your own accepted self-image. You cannot go beyond your own accepted self-image, which means whatever you put after the anything is where you're going. Today's talk title is called, If You Could Be Anyone, ... Now, first of all, you'd have to believe that you have the option to be anyone you want to be. So, do you believe that you can be anyone you want to be? I want to see a show of hands. How many people, hold on a second, how many people believe that you can be anyone you want to be? Raise your hand. Okay. How many people believe that you can't be anyone you choose to be? Okay, thank you. I was about to say, like, who's going to raise their hand when I ask that question? But thank you. Both of you gravitated to the exact same two seats, so that's great. As is, like attracts like. And whether you hear my answer to this, though, you can't be anyone you want to be. You just can't. And it was a trick question. I know y'all hate when I do that, but it was a trick question because we're taught to think we can be anyone we choose to be. And then we try to be that person. Think about this. We then try to be that. I try to be like Tony Robbins. I try to be like Bernadette Peters. Some of us. I try to be like my heroes and my icons, the people that I so admire. I try to be, and yet, I can never be anything other than who I truly am, and that's God. What I do with that creates whatever personalities I choose to create. And my entire ministry in the last couple of years has been a trajectory, a very strong trajectory for us all to really get it. I am God is not heretical, it is not insulting, it is not arrogant, it's just the truth. And I loved what Johanna read from Meister Eckhart this morning in meditation, which is that our entire purpose in life is to learn to think, breathe, speak, feel as God. Because that's who and what we are. Everything that gets in the way are all the conditions of life that tell us where our anything is. But God says anything is possible, especially when God sings it through Karen Mitchell. And God knows everything is possible because that is the absolute truth. So can you be anyone you want to be? Yeah, you really can be anyone you want to be, provided it comes from the truth of who you are. Then you can be whatever you decide to be. And that's really the question. So I'm driving along this week, and it was very funny. The church around the corner, I haven't talked about them in a long time, but they always put up with their talk title is, and the minister always puts up what he's going to talk about on Sunday. And I drove by it, and I was like, fascinating. It was like, anything's possible with hope. I was at a red light. I couldn't even get away from it. I had to stare at it. I was like, anything's possible with hope. Now, I have done a bit of a turnaround on hope. You know, I used to think, you know, hope is, as Ernest Holmes says, it's better than despair, but barely. But now I really get it. For some people, hope is the next step, and that is very important. But here's the thing about hope. Here's the thing about anything's possible with hope. If you are hoping that anything's possible, it stays out here. I can hope anything's possible, but until I actually know it, it's staying out here, a possibility. And I am tired of being filled with possibilities, aren't you? Don't you just want to stop being the person with great possibilities and actually be that person? Actually live the possibilities? I'm no longer possible, I am. That's the kick, that's the key. I'm no longer possible, I am. I am. I am that which thou art. Leonardo da Vinci said, "It had long since come to my attention that people of accomplishment rarely sat back and let things happen to them. They went out and happened to things." When was the last time you happened to something? I mean, think about that. Those words are so fascinating. Happened to things. I believe that once you decide to be someone, everything comes into alignment. Once you make a firm decision, everything comes into alignment. Once you decide to happen to your career, once you decide to happen to your relationships, once you decide where I am putting down roots and that is where I am living, everything comes to you. The minute you decide who the I am is, the world opens up. Everything opens up. Ralph Waldo Emerson says, once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. Once you make a decision, the universe conspires to make it happen. So this week, I want you to decide to be someone that makes sense to you in your life. Not just be who you've said you were, who you think you are, or be what other people want you to be, or be who you have to be because you have this job and this relationship. I want you to really make a firm choice, maybe a brand new choice. I want you to decide to be someone that makes sense to you in your life. And once you decide that, notice everything that happens around you and see if it fits into who you've decided to be, starting with I am God, and then deciding, this is who I am in this plane of action. Now, does it fit? I want you to decide to be someone who is happy. Decide to be happy and passionate about living. And decide to be that someone. I am someone who loves my life. And then just pay attention. And if anything comes along that doesn't fit in there, it needs some rethinking, doesn't it? I want you to decide to be someone who happens to things and not someone who things happen to. Do you see the difference? You be someone that takes your energy out and happen in the world. And don't just wait for the world to happen and see what you think about it. Because that's easy. You can do that because there's a lot happening in the world and you can react to it. But be the energy that actually happens to the world. Decide to be who you really are and then act accordingly. When you really know who you are, the next step is to responsibly act accordingly. Decide to be the best version of who you are and then allow that version some room to breathe. So I'm going to leave you with a question, a question that makes me very emotional when I talk about these things. The question is this, and I have asked myself this a lot lately. I am at my best when ... Just sit with that for a minute. I am at my best when... What comes after that? Let the answer come to you this week. Start every day with it. I am at my best when... And then find out, am I living my best? Am I living at my best? If I know I am at my best when this, when I am this, if I know that's the truth, it is my responsibility to be at my best, to live at my best, to live through my best, and to take my best and to happen it to the world. I am at my best when it is really time for us to do, as Da Vinci said, to happen to the world. There are 120 so, and I don't know how many people online today. All of us, we have an impact to make on the world. And that impact is to live the best we can possibly live. But first to know what is my best. And then to responsibly live it. And then see what happens. Nothing is out of the realm of possibility when I am living at my best. I am at my best when... And for each one of us, it will be different. I know the best in each and every one of you because I know the best in myself. I know when I'm living it, and I know when I'm not. And I'm committed to living it more and more and more and more, so much so that there is this seamless energy around me that doesn't even contemplate the question anymore because it's absurd to live at any level other than my best. Namaste. Thank you.